how does covert emotional incest produce guarantees? This is a major factor in the psychology behind covert emotional incest. The fact that it guarantees you security, emotional security. So whether you fail or not in your relationship, g'day guys, what a life you guys have got. Whoa. Good on you guys. G'day mate. Guarantees the fact that you won't end up alone. That's what it does. Because the bond of it is so great that ending up on your own is not a possibility, because you have the guarantee of the bond that you have in the covert emotional incest. For the parent, it's the child. The child's not going nowhere. For the child, it's the parent. The parent's not going nowhere. That's how covert emotional incest guarantees itself. You'll find that a lot of covert emotional incest participators end up on their own eventually, because the bond between the parent and the child corrupts their stability towards their partner. Now, these people will argue this, but just check out how many are on their own, or how happy the partners are of these people. It's a misery for the partners of these people. You might say, well, you're blowing it out of proportion. No, I'm not. It's hard when you need affection from somebody and you have the intrusion, the unconscionable intrusion of covert emotional incest. This can be the child to the parent, affecting the parent's partner, or the parent to the child, affecting the child's partner. And I'm sure many of you listening to this, if you've been on the end of it, would have no sympathy for any of these people that have been in covert emotional incest if the relationship, be it parent to partner or child to partner, is terminated. It's so off-putting. It's horrible. But there's a guarantee. There's the covert emotional incest relationship guarantees those in it of company. That means the company of the partner isn't valued as much as it should be. It's taken for granted to some extent. There's different percentages on how this works. Covert emotional incest can upset the partner of the parent or the child, and they won't care at the time, but the apologies will come rolling in once the covert emotional incest has had its fix. Its supply is met. It's unreasonable. It's selfish. It makes no room for outsiders whatsoever. It has no mercy for those it affects. And it all boils down to the partner's parent or child partner. The third spoke in the wheel on how much they can tolerate or not. You can complain about it, you can mention it, you can bring it to mind. But there'll be no change. And if one or the other of the two participants try to change, the other one will play up and make it miserable for them. So they'll make it a misery. That's how covert emotional incest works. It preys on the vulnerabilities of those in which it's established itself upon. Bit of wind out here this afternoon. That's okay. Lovely afternoon. You've got to remember, covert emotional incest is formed long before the outsiders come along. And it usually is able to hide itself for some months before it starts to manifest. Now, some people might be able to tolerate it. Some people might even be able to use it to their advantage, in the sense that, well, while my partner's engaging with parent or child, depending, it gives me time to do what I like. But you'll find that covert emotional incest, if you allow it to breed, when it comes to a situation where you need that person's time, you won't get it, because you've given permission, indirectly given permission for the behavior to be authorized. So then when you try and have your way with something, you'll be in opposition to the arrangement, which is to put covert emotional incest first. And this is where the trouble starts. This is where there's no end to the unreasonableness of it. Now, I've been in a situation where I've left the premises of the partner while this sort of nonsense has been going on, due to threats of suicide or attempts of suicide. The coercion of it, oh God. The coercion and manipulation, once it gets a foothold, is strangulating. I've left the premises, not without any malice or any rudeness, but been accused of being rude because I didn't accommodate the covert emotional incest. Covert emotional incest will intrude into your time at the most critical of moments. It'll give no regard to the third person. It will give no respect to the person that's not of the DNA. It will just relentlessly go about its business without any remorse, any fear of consequence, or any fear of failure. Because covert emotional incest, remember this, it doesn't fail because it's got the maternal bond, which is the foundation of it all. But remember, covert emotional incest is feelings that are shared between parent and child that ought not to be shared except between two adults. And I liken it to under 18 no entry rules, or you're too young to come into this premises rules. It's the same with covert emotional incest. The parents has taken off the sign and said to the child, come on in. I know it's not savoury for you, I know it's not good for you, but come on in. Because it accommodates a desperate need that the parent has. And it all looks lovely and it all looks wonderful and nurturing and it all sounds great. It all looks great. But then you find, in the case of a father and daughter, the daughter cannot maintain a relationship. She loses interest in the boys. And then she'll find a bad boy and run that as long as she can, only to her own detriment. father will reject the person, and she'll, out of her rebellion, pursue the person, and they reconcile through covert emotional incest, the father and the daughter. Covert emotional incest has a way of blotting out wrong. It doesn't want to confront the issue. It wants to maintain the feed, and it will do whatever it has to make sure that feed keeps coming. There's a fair bit of wind out here today. Beautiful afternoon. Covert emotional incest has that guarantee. No matter how dire they make the relationship look, no matter how bad the relationship between the parent and the child looks, even if it looks like it's in enmity, it's not. They'll go into enmity to rebuild confidence in the partner, the outsider, the one that's not of DNA. They'll go into enmity to re-establish the third person, the partner, if there's fear of losing that person in the initial to middle stages. But once covert emotional incest has had its way, once it's marinated its way through the fibers and the fabrics and the dynamics of the partnership, the third person partnership, because remember, you're the third person. You're not in the enmeshment. You're not invited. As it marinates, you become more separated. You become pushed away. You get pushed away. Your value lessens because the bond has to win. The covert emotional bond has to win. It's very rare that you'll find people that can break this bond in a way as if to say, my partner comes before this relationship. I had a mother that did it, that could do it. I've not met one since. I've been involved with several single mothers now, and beautiful women with good children, but the emotional incest was greater than any part I was going to be able to play in any of their lives, because again, it's based on maternal instincts. You cannot challenge or go against maternal instincts. You've got no right. You'll end up damaged yourself. You need to understand this. So what do you do when you find yourself in a situation where you've identified covert emotional incest? What do you do? Well, first, you have to know what it is, and the majority do not. They just think it's a natural level of the maternal bond between these people, and that that's where it's supposed to be, and that's where it will stay, and that you're to adjust and facilitate it by making emotional sacrifices yourself, by neglecting your needs. I know it sounds dramatic, but it's not. When it's actually happening and you need your partner and they're off, trying to deal with the needs, the usually petty needs of one of these, either the child or the parent. It's always usually petty, not always, but most of it's petty, because it's just feeding the emotional need. It's like a baby sucking on the tit, on the breast, that has to have its milk. And it's very sad to think that a parent can put themselves and their child into this situation in which these horrible enmeshments take place. You'll find that the children in particular have difficulty in their partnerships, that being that the partners see what's going on, and it goes for a lot of the parents as well. Unless you're numb, completely numbed out and willing to tolerate the intrusion of it, then you'll be able to tolerate it. But if you for most people, the way in which it stirs you in your spirit and in your soul is usually too much to take. Just too much to take, too much to bear. And they don't understand that. They don't care. Once you're gone, life goes on, because that's the guarantee. That's what we're talking about, the guarantee. Remember? They're guaranteed emotional security between each other. The third person doesn't matter because the guarantee is there. They have their guarantee. That's the covenant of covert emotional incest. It's not a maternal bond. It's a brilliant strategist. It knows exactly what it's doing, how to fuel, how to protect itself, and all at the merciless attitude towards the partner, the third person. That's the way in which covert emotional incest is smart, because it guarantees whether the partner stays or goes, it will not be left alone. It has the parent or the child to fall back on. And that's not the way in which a relationship should work. It's a cop-out. It's allowing the infantile mentality of it to take over when maturity is called for. See, covert emotional incest mixed with maternal angst cancels out everything. You'll be cancelled out. Everything around it is cancelled out. And even if you walk away, you'll be cancelled out. There won't be much of a struggle because it has the guarantee. This is what I'm trying to say to you. It guarantees itself emotional supply. So you've got to ask yourself, do you want to emotionally invest yourself into one of these types of people? Because they're not going to care if you go. You'll get a sorry or I wish I didn't. But if you go, they've got the guarantee. They've got their emotional supply. The child to the parent and the parent to the child. And it's a corrupt way to deal with things. It's not the right way to deal with things. It's not how things ought to be dealt with. It's robbery of time. It's robbery of life on the part of the outsider. I've known many women and men that have come out of these relationships and wondered what actually happened. They didn't know what covert emotional incest was. They put up with this behaviour for years, decades. You can't get that time back. And these people just go on. And you're left standing there scratching your head going, well, what happened then? Well, they had the guarantee. They had the guarantee of each other, the parent and the child. You've got to understand how this works. If you can't recognize this and it gets to you, people commit suicide wondering, where have I gone wrong? And guess what? When you're gone, it has its guarantee. They go on. You're forgotten in a week. Let's get that out of the way. and they go on in their supply. I was just speaking to a very close builder friend of mine, a person who I deeply respect. And I said to him, the grass is not greener on the other side. Don't believe for 1 minute that it is. These people are miserable because covert emotional incest has a hangover, and I'll do a talk on that. Covert emotional incest and the hangover. Guess who wears the brunt of the hangover? If you're there, the third person. The grass isn't greener on the other side. We're not designed to swap and change and fart people around. There should be boundaries around adult to adult relationships that are relative to the health of that, and boundaries around parent to child relationships that are relative to the health of that. And they're all gone for the most part. They're all mixed up. They're all messed up. And people are wondering, how did that happen? Why did this happen? That shouldn't have happened to me, so on and so forth, and blah, 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 blah. Why am I on my own? They whinge to their children. They program their children. I know one lot that was programmed to believe all middle-aged men are to be disliked. All, not some, all. Well, how are those people going to mature? How are they going to build masculinity into themselves? They're not. Because they believe all men, middle-aged men, are no good. They could have a millionaire, successful millionaire sitting in front of them, living their best life, and disregard it as useless, hopeless, no good to me. That's the vanity of covert emotional incest. That's the security that it has. That's the cockiness and blatantness that it has. It will not accept wisdom. It can't, because it's not wise within itself. It thinks it is. Oh, you get all your emotions groomed when you're in covert emotional incest. Oh, you think you're right on track, only to find yourself masturbating and whinging and carrying on like an immature person, which is what the infantile aspect of covert emotional incest is. It brings out all manner of evil nature and behaviour because it's cunning and deceitful. It's covert. It doesn't want to be exposed. It's the lust and the evil that comes with it. But covert emotional incest has a guarantee. You've got to understand this. That's why you're left standing there floundering and wondering, well, where's the value for if I go, why don't you care? Because they have the guarantee. The guarantee is not whether you stay or not. The guarantee is whether you put up with it or not, because they're protected by the enmeshment, the parent-child enmeshment. Oh, it's diabolical. People have committed suicide because of this. They haven't understood what's actually happened. They couldn't come to terms with what happened. How did that happen? What actually happened? Well, they had the guarantee of each other, the parent and the child. They had the guarantee. It's wicked, and it's cruel, and it's relentless. That's how the guarantee of covert emotional incest works. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.